This is Alan McCarti, who was arrested and charged after making death threats to a judge. In a child custody case, a judge ruled against McCarti and took away his children. His erratic behavior towards the judge continued into his court appearances.
My daddy owns the building and I look like a f***ing idiot, huh? Brought your dress today, you little f***ing prick? You wanna take my kids from me and act like that? You and that.
Well, here's my first take. Anytime you're dealing with family law matters, you're gonna get a lot of emotion because you're not really dealing with things that are moment in time necessarily, like a traffic stop or even some of the more random crimes you might get, like a random assault. I mean, there's usually years of buildup. And in this case, this guy's getting his kids taken from him. And so there is probably a lengthy past history of his either abuse or misconduct, and the courts are really slow to ever take custody from kids, from parents rather. So this guy must have done something that is really far out on the outer boundary of acceptable. But this kind of reaction, sadly, is not unusual in family law matters. So I'll continue on, but you can tell the emotions are going to run high in any kind of an instance like this.
After McCarti was found guilty for the original threats made to a judge, we now move on to the sentencing.
What a bunch of guys, you stupid piece of
Then also
You threatened my life,
in the
you
back room.
suck my No, I'm not standing up.
Stop resisting.
I'm not resisting, I'm just not standing up. I'm not standing. I don't have to stand.
McCarti is moved to another room to watch the court through a one-way glass, and he continues on making a disturbance.
So it looks like we can see the judge here, probably in this reflective glass, but interesting video to watch right now for a lot of reasons, and this certainly isn't a political statement. There's good arguments on both sides about judges and their authorities, and we see that kind of playing out the Trump administration, and we certainly see it here, but judges are, in our system, do have an immense amount of power. And as we know, with power comes a lot of responsibility, but judges that get their life threatened and judges that get threatened because of the decision they're making really degrades our system, our way of life. And so as a society, we should really take these things serious, because if you get judges that are concerned about personal safety while making decisions, obviously our system isn't working the way it should. But again, obviously this guy's in a state of emotion and probably has a lengthy criminal history that would get him to this point. So we're not dealing with society's best, but nevertheless, judges are always tasked with making tough decisions. I'm sure this judge took zero pleasure in doing what he had to do.
McCarti was sentenced to 20 years in prison. The judge also issued an additional 10-day sentence due to his actions in the courtroom.
So that's kind of an interesting thing. Just the 10 days for his actions in the courtroom. I'm not entirely sure what the 20-year sentence would be, but the 10-year sentence just for that behavior in the courtroom is probably warranted, and certainly gets the support from lawyers like me, where you're hoping that once it gets into a courtroom that it's at that point a controlled situation, some very civilized. But yeah, those family law instances and very highly emotional. Certainly, I would suspect that guy has a lengthy history, and I'm glad that judge made the decision he did.